In this video, I will briefly cover the best free-to-play 3 or 4-star options for each 5-star character in the game, and I will making another video covering 4-star characters with the free-to-play options for them as well. But before we get into this video, you know what else is free? Subscribing and supporting me so that I can be motivated to make another part of this video and a lot more in the future. So with all that being said, let's get into it. First up is Jean, and I know you can't craft this one, but I bet everyone has a copy if you've been playing for a while, and it has a base stat of 454 attack with 61.3 energy recharge at level 90, with the R5 effect being crit hits have a 100% chance to generate a small amount of elemental particles, which will regenerate 6 energy for the character and can only occur once every 6 seconds. And most supports in Genshin Impact would gladly fill the sword, and I believe that similar to Sacrificial Sword, Favonius is also a great energy recharge weapon, and the ability to support teams' energy regeneration is pretty good. The only downside of Favonius Sword is that some crit rate is required for Jean to trigger the weapon's passive, which is not a big deal. As for Diluc, I would say the best free-to-play option is a craftable weapon known as Prototype Archaic, and I believe it's easily accessible to every single free-to-play player. This means you can upgrade the weapon to max refinements, and it's quite easily one of the easiest weapons to reap all the benefits, because the substats of this weapon is 27.6 attack percentage with 565 base attack at level 90, and every 15 seconds there is a 50% chance of dealing an additional 230% attack damage to opponents within a small AoE, and in Refinement 5 it will deal 480% extra damage, which is crazy if you ask me. There's also another weapon that was time limited called Luxurious Sea Lord, which is really good for Diluc, but if you don't have it, it's fine. But if you do, I would suggest go for that one instead of Prototype Archaic since it was free. But either way, going with Prototype Archaic is never the wrong thing to do, so go for it. Next is your favorite character, Qiqi. Best weapon for her is in fact Sacrificial Sword, which is one of the best swords in the game, with 61.3 energy recharge as a substat with 454 base attack at level 90. Since the substat is energy recharge, it dramatically increases how often she can use her elemental burst and be more impactful. And the blade's refinement effect is when you're dealing damage with an elemental skill, this sword offers a 40 to 80% chance of ending that skill cooldown based on the refinement. Since Qiqi's cooldown is 30 seconds, this effect can be a lifesaver in midst of combat. Pretty much after using her elemental skill and damaging an opponent, this can occur every 30 seconds. So it's not a bad idea to go for refinements so that you can have 80% chance of that happening, and it's fantastic in my opinion. Next one, Mona. Now depending on whether you're using her for burst support or you want to see some crazy damages on the screen, I would say a 3-star weapon called Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers is the best one with HP percentage for support, and it has 35.2% HP percent on level 90 with 401 base attack, and as you can see with the refinement stat of attack increase for 24% for 10 seconds every time you switch to a new character, and can occur every 20 seconds. But if you're looking for dealing massive amount of damage with Mona, then Wisith is your best option with 55.1 crit damage at level 90 with base attack of 510. Now, the thing is, the refinement is pretty cool, and I would say it's pretty random, because if you gain a random song, you have different stats. Like for example, Recitative effect gives you increased 60% attack, and then Aria increases elemental damage by 48%, and Interlude gives you 240 elemental mastery, which I would say you will most likely go for Aria for that elemental damage bonus of 48%, which is pretty damn good. As for Keqing, I would say best 4-star weapon for her is Lion's Roar if you want an Electro DPS build, or even use her for aggravate build. But I would say another option is Harbinger of Dawn, a 3-star weapon. And sometimes if you don't have Lion's Roar, Harbinger of Dawn is actually a better idea because you have it for free for sure, and you can get maximum refinement on it. The only downside on Harbinger of Dawn is that you need a shielder or a healer to keep your Keqing's HP higher than 90% so that the effects can work on her. But if not, Lion's Roar has great stats and it will increase the damage against opponents affected by Pyro or Electro by 20%, and for refinement rank 5 it's 36% increased damage, and it is one of her best weapons overall. It is recommended to run her in a Electro Charge composition or something like that, because if you use her with a Pyro character, then you will have overload reaction and it will just bounce the enemies around, and you don't want to do that because you don't want to hunt them down with Keqing, not her best suit of action. So I would say go for an Electro Charge team or an aggravate team, and your Keqing will hit like a truck. As for Venti, it's not that complicated because he's a simple character to build and not a whole lot of crazy builds for him. So you can basically use Stringless or Favonius Warbow, and he is one of the best Anemo units in the game, and he's crazy good, especially against smaller enemies. And these two weapons, I would say Stringless is better because of the Elemental Mastery substat at level 90 being 165 with base attack of 510, and its increase of Elemental Skill and Burst by 24%. And if you have Refinement 5, go ahead and make that number into 48%, which is really, really good. As for Klee, I would say the Mapamare or the Mapamare, I'm not sure how you pronounce that weapon's name, but it's a craftable 4-star weapon. It's a decent choice for Klee, as the passive will give players small elemental damage boost for 10 seconds after triggering an elemental reaction. This weapon is best in slot for Klee as a 4-star free-to-play option, because when she is in a team alongside characters like Xingqiu and Fischl, as they can provide her with constant elemental reactions, which can help keep the damage bonus up. Still, this is one of the weaker weapons for Klee, but as our F2P player, you're gonna find this weapon a lot more helpful than it actually is. Next up, the Rerun Master, Tartaglia. You can use Rust or Stringless, but I would personally suggest Stringless over Rust, because of the refinements of Stringless makes Tartaglia do more damage overall, with elemental skill and burst damage increase in R1 to 24% and R5 to 48%, which makes a big difference and makes Tartaglia hit so hard. You may also use Yoimiya as a craftable weapon from Inazuma that you can obtain the blueprint from Takeshi's chest quest, which if you want to know how to do it, go ahead and look up on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it somewhere and they will let you know how it's done. But this will also increase normal attack by 16% and charge attack damage by 12% in refinement rank 1 of Yoimiya, which is really good. And whenever his energy is at 100%, these effects will have 100% effectiveness, which if you ask me, it's good. But I would still say if you have any Stringlesses available, which I'm sure many of you do, go for Stringless over any of these weapons. Next one on the list, Zhongli. And his best free-to-play option is Black Tassel, which is a 3-star weapon with HP percentage. And I know you're building him as a shield support because that's where Zhongli shines. And it has 46.9 HP percentage at level 90 with base attack of 354, which base attack doesn't really matter for this weapon, but refinement doesn't go crazy because it only increases damage against slimes, so no need for refinement. But since it's a free 3-star weapon, everyone has multiple copies and you can simply go for R5 for the fun of it if you want to do more damage against slimes. But pretty much this weapon is the best free to play option for Zhongli if your goal is to make him a shield support, which I'm sure many of you do. Next up, the sussy boy Albedo. Sorry if that was cringe. Albedo has a great weapon called Cinnabar Spindle that was available if you played during version 2.3, which was perfect for him. But if you don't have it, don't worry, don't panic. Same as Zhongli, one of his best weapons is a 3-star option called Harbinger of Dawn that has 46.9 crit damage at level 90 with 401 base attack. But that's not all. It has a fantastic refinement bonus where if you have HP of 90% and above, it increases crit rate by 14%, and it's definitely worth getting the R5, which is easy since it's a 3-star free weapon, because then you're looking at 28% crit rate increase if your HP is 90% and above. If you can really keep Albedo's HP up at all times with either a healer or maybe Zhongli's shield or any other shield in general, you can do some crazy damage with Albedo. As for Ganyu or Coco Goat, I would say whether you want to build her as melt DPS or freeze comp DPS, I would say go for Hamayumi, which as I mentioned, it's a craftable free-to-play option from Inazuma. But if you can't go to Inazuma or by any chance you didn't do the quest and you don't have the blueprint, you can go for Prototype Crescent, which you can craft early game, but I would say Hamayumi is a better option in my opinion because of refinement potential and more value for a free-to-play player. And since you will most likely use Ganyu with her charge shots, Hamayumi increases normal for 16% and charge shots for 12% at refinement rank 1, and at R5 both of them get increased by 32% for the normal shot and 24% for the charge shot. And refinement rank 5 is definitely worth it for your Ganyu if your main DPS carry unit is her. If not, R1 will do the job just fine and you don't have to worry about it. As for the Edgelord, Xiao. Please don't get offended, it was just a stupid joke. If you have any extra star glitter, Blackcliff Pole is a good option because it has 55.1 crit damage at level 90 with 510 base attack. As you can see, with the substat of increasing attack by 12% in R1 for 30 seconds after you defeat an enemy for a maximum of 3 stacks, and you can expect it to be 24% increase at R5, which I doubt any of you will go for it because Star Glitter isn't that easily obtainable. Now, Favonius Lance is another option with 30.6 energy recharge with 565 base attack and the refinement of crit hits having 60% chance to generate a small amount of elemental particles, which will regenerate 6 energy for the character equipped by it, having 60% chance to generate a small amount of elemental particles, which will regenerate 6 energy for a character equipped by it, and can happen every 12 seconds, and refinement 5 has a 100% chance of it happening. That also reduces the time of occurrence to 6 seconds. So I would say you can go for Favonius Lance with the refinement rank 5 if you have any extras, or go for R1 for Blackcliff Pole, which is a great free-to-play option in my opinion. For Hu Tao, I know this is not a popular weapon, but Dragon's Bane is a good free-to-play option with 221 elemental mastery at level 90 with a base attack of 454, with R1 increasing damage against opponents by Hydro or Pyro by 20% or 36% at refinement rank 5. You could potentially use White Tassel for the absolute free-to-play option, which is a 3-star weapon with 23.4 crit rate and 401 base attack, which increases normal attacks by 24% and in R5 by 48%, which is respectable, but I would still recommend Dragon's Bane overall for the damage value that Hu Tao can bring to your team that White Tassel just can't do. As for Eula, I would say you can use Snowtomb Star Silver, which if you don't know how to obtain, there's a certain hidden quest in Dragon Spine. I know you hate to go to Dragon Spine because it's so annoying. I get it. But if you search on the YouTube and see if you can find out how to do the quest, it is only good for Eula because of its substat being physical damage bonus of 34.5% at level 90 with a base attack of 565, and you can see the refinement stats on the screen. And since one of its stats specifically works for opponents affected by cryo, then it pretty much makes sense why it's best for Eula and Eula only. I wouldn't recommend this weapon for any other character pretty much, maybe Razor, but as I said, it doesn't make that much sense to use it for Razor. As for Kazuha, as long as you have the materials, you can craft Iron Sting that doesn't require any quest and is available in early game, and it has a elemental mastery of 165 at level 90 with a base attack of 510. Plus, thanks to his passive, every time he deals elemental damage, it will increase all damage he does by 6 to 12% for 6 seconds depending on the refinement, and this can be stacked twice and used more every second. As for Ayaka, her best in slot I would say is Amenoma Kageuchi for a free-to-play option, and players shouldn't underestimate this weapon and its value, because the weapon's strength lies in its compatibility with Ayaka's elemental burst, which accounts for a significant portion of her damage output, with 55.1 attack percent and 454 base attack at level 90. Upon using an elemental skill, the weapon creates a succession seed that can last up to 30 seconds, with up to 3 seeds active at any given time. When an elemental burst is utilized, all existing succession seeds are consumed, regenerating 6 energy for each seed, which is fantastic for characters like Ayaka, and I would say it is the best in slot for her in every free-to-play option. For Yoimiya, I have a 3-star weapon suggestion, which is Slingshot. You might think it's a joke, but the passive of this weapon offers 60% damage addition for Yoimiya's attack. This allows the bow to shine among the 4-star options for her. Even though it has a low base attack, Slingshot's crit rate stat will also prove to be useful, especially when combined with Yoimiya's own crit stat with 31.2 crit rate and 354 base attack at level 90. I would say this is a really good free-to-play option for anyone trying to use Yoimiya. I would say for Raiden Shogun, the cache that can be unlocked by fishing is the best free-to-play option for her. And I know it's not the most fun thing to do, and fishing mechanic is not the best, but as a free-to-play player, hey man, it's worth it because it has an energy recharge of 45.9% at level 90, and the substat at the refinement being so good that I would say it's really worth it because it increases elemental damage by 16% and elemental burst crit rate by 6%. It is evident that this weapon was tailor-made for burst DPS characters like Raiden Shogun and Qiqi. It solely focuses on elemental burst and significantly increases the damage output for it. And the ER substat also helps in getting the burst before the cooldown ends, which is fantastic for this character. And I would say go for refinements, because as you get more refinements, as you might have guessed, it gets a lot better. And at refinement 5, your Raiden Shogun will hit like a damn truck. Trust me, and go for it. As for Kokomi, which is a support character, I would say go for Thrilling Tales, which is a 3-star weapon and is a good option because the main stat is HP, benefiting Kokomi's healing and damage further by 7 to 35.2%, though not as much as the prototype Amber. However, since the Catalyst focuses more on support Kokomi, her damage output isn't as important, so I would say Thrilling Tales is a great option, and a lot of you already have it, so no need to worry. For Arataki Itto, there aren't a lot of good weapons as a free-to-play option for him, but I would say White Blind is a great forgeable weapon choice, and the Claymore has a decent base attack and increases both Itto's attack and defense on hit, although Itto only wants to, have defense increase. In the end, White Blind adds almost 100% defense for Itto, making it a reliable choice, especially for a character that scales with defense. For Shenhe, the Dragon Spine Spear works best with pretty much all the cryo users, but it has the biggest boost for cryo, so if you're using Shenhe in an all cryo team, you're really going to get the best performance out of everyone. And this polearm, you can forge it yourself, making it a pretty easy weapon to get, and it gives a range of 41 to 454 base attack bonus depending on Shenhe's level. As for UI Miko, Mappamare or Mappamare, as I already said, I can't really pronounce this name. is an excellent F2P catalyst that can be forged. This weapon will be a decent choice for Yoimiya in a Dendro focus team, and she will benefit from an elemental mastery substat to improve her reaction damage. Due to the craftable nature of this catalyst, you can easily get it to refinement rank 5 if you want. The weapon's passive effect works well with Yai's typical rotation. When you trigger an elemental reaction, Yai will get an 8% bonus to her elemental damage that lasts for 10 seconds. This effect can stack twice. If you're using an off-field support Yai, you should use your normal attack to get some elemental reactions and then use her skill, finishing it with a burst. So I would highly recommend using this weapon as a free-to-play option. As for Ayato, some of you may disagree, but I would say Sacrificial Sword is a pretty easy weapon to use for him, and the reason being is that it has a high percentage of energy recharge, being 61.3, and the substat attack of 454. And once you've dealt in damage to an enemy with Ayato's elemental skill, the Sacrificial Sword has a 40% chance of ending its cooldown, or if you have refinement rank 5, it has an 80% chance of ending its cooldown period once every 30 seconds. And as you guys know, elemental skill is really important when it comes to Ayato, so I would highly recommend using this weapon or the same weapon that his sister uses, which is Amenoma Kageuchi. If you can get that one is also good, and I'm gonna put the stat on the screen. You guys decide which one you decide to use. I'm gonna put it on the screen, and you guys decide which one is better for you and which one you're trying to use, and it's more available for you. So yeah, it's up to you. As for Yelan, I would say Favonius Warbow is a good option, and the reason for that is one of the best aspects of this bow is its high energy recharge stat, which is 61.3 at max level. It will make her somewhat high energy costs more manageable, and the effect of generating small elemental particles will work well with her base crit rate, which is really good. And it's also a genuinely good option outside of being a freebie for her. But there are a couple more options that you can use, like Sacrificial Bow and Stringless, which I would highly recommend you giving those two a try as well. And I'm gonna put a picture of both of them with their stat on the screen. And once again, it's up to you to decide between these three weapons, but I would say Favonius Warbow is by far the better option for her. As for Tighnari, if you don't want to rely on your team and you want to have Tighnari being a sub DPS, Stringless is a pretty good option because it gives 24% increase to both his elemental skill and elemental burst damage at refinement rank 1. This will definitely make him stronger in battle without needing to create reactions. But if you can hit the weak points, Prototype Crescent is a decent weapon for him as well. You can forge it easily in blacksmith shop once you collect all the ingredients. Means you don't have to work too hard for it to work for Tighnari, and you can easily get more refinements as well. And Prototype Crescent is usable on multiple characters, as I said, and it has 510 base attack and 41.3% attack substat. And whenever Tighnari hits a target with his charge attack in his weak spot, the movement speed will get a bonus of 10% for 10 seconds, and his attack gets another 36% increase for the same time span, which is a pretty good option if you ask me. So either go for Stringless or go for Prototype Crescent for the free play option for Tighnari. As for the free to play option for Cyno, I would say Kitten Crossspear is a good option, and it's easily accessible and craftable in Inazuma, and along with that you can get 110 elemental mastery at level 90, which is great if you want to use a reaction based team with Cyno. Quicken and Aggravate are some of the strongest reactions in Genshin Impact after Dendro was released, and they involve Electro and Dendro. Cyno's passive ability, Authority over the 9, also increases your damage based on the elemental mastery you possess. This makes Kitten Crossspear one of his best in slot weapons already. Furthermore, Cyno has a burst cost of 80, and this weapon can also help you mitigate the lack of energy recharge. It takes away 3 energy whenever the elemental skill hits an opponent, but gives 3 or 5 energy every 2 seconds for the next 6 seconds in return, which is a good deal, and I would highly recommend, if you have a Cyno, go ahead and craft Kitten Crossspear for it. For Nilou, Sapwood Blade, which is a craftable weapon that can be acquired after following the main world quest in the Sumeru Desert, where you learn about the Aranara and their village. Apart from 565 attack, it also gives you an energy recharge of up to 30.3%. Nilou's 2 special passive rely on activating the Bloom reaction with her bountiful cores. This weapon gives you 120 elemental mastery for 10 seconds whenever you trigger this reaction, but it can only be triggered once every 20 seconds. If you're using her on another team like Vaporize, this weapon can be quite useless since you won't trigger Dendro reactions, but I would assume if you have Nilou, you're basically using her with characters like Kokomi, Nahida, Alhaitham, characters like that. And if you do, this weapon is the best option for Nilou. As for the Dendro Archon, Nahida, right off the bat, this weapon is her best in slot 4-star option, and it's Sacrificial Fragments because it gives you 221 points of elemental mastery at level 90, making it easier to get good total and great damage for Nahida. And it has a 40 to 80% chance of resetting the elemental skill cooldown depending on its refinement rank. This is great for you if you want to use it again quickly to take advantage of elemental reactions, but Nahida's elemental skill cooldown isn't long enough to make it an absolute must. So pretty much it's the best for her because of the substat of elemental mastery. Next up, Wanderer. And I know this weapon isn't as popular, but Eye of Perception is a 4-star weapon that players can get from any banner randomly. Sometimes it's featured on weapon banner with a higher drop rate, but I would suggest stay away from weapon banner. But this weapon gives you an attack percent bonus of 55.1% at maximum level as a secondary stat, which is one of the most useful stats for Wanderer. Secondly, the normal and charge attacks done by character using this weapon have a chance of firing a bolt that can deal massive amount of damage to 4 enemies at random. Since Wanderer scales on attack completely, this weapon suits him. Although you might struggle with his crit ratio if you don't have good artifacts, you can use Vitsith, which is another 4-star, and as you guys can see, it has a crazy amount of crit damage with 55.1% and having a base attack of 510 at level 90. And it's a pretty good weapon for Wanderer if you have any. The crazy part is I've been playing this game almost since after launch and I don't have a single copy of Vitsith. That's why I didn't say that you should use Vitsith at first. I said you can use Eye of Perception. Maybe you're not as unlucky as me and you have it, but if not, go for Eye of Perception. And if you have any Vitsith, go for it, and it's a great weapon overall. Alhaitham. One of the best weapons for Alhaitham is Iron Sting. Is one of the best options for him because of its elemental mastery main stat, and the best part is it's forgeable and it gives you a maximum of 165 points of elemental mastery at level 90, and he will be able to benefit from its passive almost constantly as well thanks to his easy Dendro application. Depending on its refinement, Iron Sting's passive increases all damage by 6 to 12% for 6 seconds. Every time he deals Dendro damage, even if you keep the refinements at rank 1, a consistent extra 6% of damage on top of more elemental mastery can make a big difference, and it's definitely worth it to even go for R5 Iron Sting on Alhaitham, which doesn't require any type of quest and is available in the early game. As for Dehya, I don't really have much to say, but I can say Sacrificial Greatsword may not be entirely useful for Dehya's damage, but with a primary stat of 565 base attack and 30.6% energy recharge, and with the R5 effect After dealing damage to an opponent with an elemental skill, this skill has a 80% chance of ending its own cooldown and can only occur once every 16 seconds. If you wish to prolong the duration of a elemental skill, then this claymore is worth trying out, but overall Dehya is not a unit that I can really talk about that much. But pretty much either this weapon or the bell can work out just fine for a character like Dehya. And for Baizhu, this weapon is always surprisingly good choice for the Callis users whose skills are based off their max HP, especially if they're support characters. It's an easy weapon to obtain and refine, which is Thrilling Tales, a 3-star weapon. Especially if you're just starting out in the game, you'll probably have a few copies, and it will increase your HP percentage by 35.2% depending on if you have it on level 90, and its passive skill also raises the attack of the character Baizhu switches up to 24 to 48% for 10 seconds with this weapon. You'll be giving Baizhu a boost in his healing and shielding, as well as letting him boost the attack of your team's main DPS. And so Thrilling Tales is a good weapon for a character like Baizhu, which the main focus of this character is healing and shielding and protecting. So go for it. And as for our newest character from Fontaine, the newest 5-star, Lyney, he can use Hamayumi with the base attack of 454 and attack percentage of 55.1%, and it's a craftable, easy to get weapon, and you can easily get refinements if you've been playing long enough, because you just need materials. It increases normal attack damage by 16% and charge attack damage by 12%. When the equipping character's energy reaches 100%, this effect is increased by 100%. This is a great option for Lyney, or you might even use Prototype Crescent. As I said before, this weapon is also a good weapon for chart shot characters, and as you can see on the screen, Prototype Crescent or Hamayumi can be both good options for Lyney. I'm gonna quickly talk about each traveler and the best weapon for them. As for Animal Traveler, I would say Iron Sting for the elemental mastery. As for Geo Traveler, Sacrificial Sword because of the energy recharge. And same with Electro Traveler, I would still say Sacrificial Sword is great. As for Dendro Traveler, Sapwood Blade for the Dendro reactions and the energy recharge, which is pretty good. And as for Hydro, I wouldn't really recommend going for Hydro Traveler because it's one of the worst units in the game. But if you want to build him or her, or for whatever reason, go for Sacrificial Sword again. Pretty much you can use Sacrificial Sword on every version of Traveler. It's just my personal opinion. And if you have any other suggestions, go down in the comments and let me know if you think that Hydro Traveler is better than, what a lot of people are saying, or even if it's worse. Just let me know and we'll talk about it more. So with all that being said, if you watched it up until now, or if you enjoyed, let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe for more videos in the future. And trust me, if you like and subscribe, it will help me be motivated to make more content and improve. And if you have any suggestions and you think this video was good, bad, or whatever your opinion is, just let me know and I will read all of them. With all that being said, have a good day or night and peace.